Hey guys, welcome to sunny California. I'm Kelly. So today's video is about something that I personally have been working on very hard in the last couple of years, I would say. This video is about boundaries. We're also going to discuss the difference between narcissists versus ego-centrism, or narcissism versus ego-centrism, and the like. So just to start with boundaries, boundaries are actually really hard for some people. Telling people what you need is not always an easy thing. Sometimes it's because you are worried about how they will feel about it. You're telling them no, or you saying, hey, I need you to treat me this way. Sometimes it's just because you don't know how you need to be treated. And that's something that comes with time and self-reflection and just realizing what works for you and what isn't. But what is really important is setting boundaries with people and telling them how to treat you, and when you just don't have the capacity to do something. We have very finite energy, and so we can't do everything that we want to do. For me personally, I have found that so often I end up expending way too much energy because I say yes to too many things, and it's not necessarily the best. I'm sure that the people that I have extended for appreciate it, or maybe they don't. That's a them thing, not a me thing. But because I expended myself, I get worn down and I get exhausted. And it's not that body tired, it's that brain tired. Just that, I really can't move. I can't think. I can't really deal with anything. So if you could just get out of my face for a moment. And it's not, and it sometimes comes, and sometimes I get cranky because I'm done. And that's why boundaries are important, to prevent that. So, you have to learn, and again, this is something that I'm still very much working on, is telling people no and telling people what you find acceptable for treatment. Going into that, going to egocentrism and narcissism, many people fall into egocentrism at some point. But what is egocentrism? Egocentrism is a preoccupation with oneself. It does often get confused for narcissism at times, because on the outside they kind of look similar. To be so preoccupied with yourself, it's like, all right, but it's not all about you. Okay. But the major difference between egocentrism and narcissism is kind of the energy behind it. So narcissism gets its name from the Greek Narcissus, who, I'm not going to give you a whole mythology story, but basically Narcissus looked in I think it was a lake, and he saw his reflection and he fell madly in love with himself, and one of the gods ended up turning him into a flower so he could just admire himself all day by the water. So we get narcissism from Narcissus, because Narcissus was obsessed with himself. He was so in love with himself. He thought that he was the best thing on earth, and there was nothing else that could have interested him. And that's why he became a flower, because he only cared about looking at himself all day. Now, egocentrism is a little different, because egocentrism doesn't always come from narcissism. Narcissists absolutely are egocentrists because they are centered on themselves, centered on their ego. But egocentrism is much more just a preoccupation with your own situation. If you're very stressed out, then it's very easy to fall into egocentrism. When our needs aren't being met and, we're not getting the time that we need, it's hard to deal with anything other than what's going on within ourselves. And, one thing that I have failed to explain to people in the past about myself is that, I do get stuck in my own head and my own stuff. And it's not that I don't care about anyone else or anyone else's problems, it's that I'm just stuck in this, cage in my head of my problems. And sometimes, you just need a reminder of like, hey, there are worse things, or, sometimes don't do that. Sometimes just like recognize that that person is at capacity for stress right now and can't handle your stuff. But also that's where the boundaries kicks in. Having that boundary setting skill of saying, hey, I'm sorry for whatever is going on with you right now, and I want to help you, but right now I can't because I'm at capacity, is boundaries. Understanding that you have your limits and staying in your limits and asking people to respect those limits. Because people are often egocentric, that is especially important to communicate your boundaries, because people forget to put themselves in your shoes. And so they end up seeing you as either, an antagonist or a protagonist to the problem. And, sometimes that's not always best for everybody. Narcissists are people that will not respect your boundaries because they don't care about you. So be very careful when you set boundaries, just to notice who respects them and who doesn't. If someone doesn't respect your boundaries repeatedly, then that person may be narcissistic, or maybe they're not narcissistic, but they're just in a part of their lives where they're so egocentric that they can't see outside of themselves. That's not your fault, but they need some time to figure their stuff out. As far as, dealing with egocentrists, sometimes a nice gentle nudge of like, hey, are you good? Like, are you okay? You seem a little self-focused lately, and, are you just super stressed right now? Or, like, what's going on? Come to them with a sense of understanding that, egocentrism doesn't always come from that narcissistic. Sometimes that narcissistic love. Sometimes egocentrism comes from stress. It comes from depression. It comes from anxiety. That person isn't trying to be a jerk to you. They just are dealing with their own stuff. For me, boundaries is so hard because I do love helping people, because I do want to help people. And, setting boundaries can be hard, especially if you're someone who is very sensitive to the needs and the feelings of others. But you have to be sensitive to the needs and feelings of yourself, too. You have to realize that you are finite. You need to recharge. You need to take care of yourself. One thing that we talked about in one of my therapy groups is, you can't, and I think this is like a pretty common thing, is, you can't fill everyone else's cup with an empty cup. One of my favorite therapists said, I fill my cup up and I serve everybody else with the overflow. I have to make sure that I'm good before I help everybody else. When you're on an airplane and it's crashing down, you put your own air mask on first before you put anyone else's air mask on. Because if you don't have your air mask on, you can't breathe and you can't help anybody. So it's all about self-love and self-respect, and anybody who cares about you when you place those boundaries is going to realize that, okay, like, that's fine, you know. If they don't understand that they're coming from a place of their own ego-centrism, and that's not your fault. I'm saying this just as much to you as I am to myself right now. You are not meant to save the world at one time. Okay? Superman can't save everybody at once. Well, maybe if there's like a meteor or something. But, you know, figure out what it is you need. Communicate that to people. Respect yourself. And when others tell you their boundaries, try to respect that too. Thanks for listening, guys. Please like and subscribe to my channel. I also have a Facebook page now if you want to like that too. I hope you have a great rest of your day.